So much people hate on AI, and honestly, I've been building this thing for probably like 3 or 4 months. It's not like a massive app, but it's helped me so much to actually structure everything. And now that I have DeepSeek on Cursor, it's like having AI on steroid. Of course, that prompt wasn't as easy as it looked, and I still have to debug some things. And there's some dependencies that was giving me some issues, so it's gonna be a tough night. I see all of these words and all of these posts that you see on Instagram about you gotta be resilient, you just have to stay on your lane, it takes a whole life to become an overnight success, and so on and so on. It's really easy to read those words and thinking that you're gonna make it or that you're never gonna make it. I think it's easy to understand both sides of that coin. And I've been watching one of my favorite animes called Haikyuu because I'm rewatching it with my girlfriend. And I just saw a scene about character that one of the traits that he has is that he's endlessly average. He constantly thinks of himself as average because everyone else on the team is really good at one thing, but he's just average on everything. Clearly, he still has some really good strong points that everyone else notices about him, but he doesn't notice them about himself. And it's because there's a really big gap, especially I think that in sports you have much more of a harsh reality about results. But even if you think that you're someone that is going to change the world, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen. But I do think that there's some sort of romantic idea that you should try, and I'm a big believer in that. I don't know if I'm ever going to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. Like every other human, I just have my ups and downs. Sometimes I'm feeling super confident, sometimes I feel like absolute shit. But there's something about me that doesn't want to give up, even when I'm down, and it can be a double-edged sword because a part of me always wants to work a little bit towards my goals, and other part of me thinks that I have endless time for me to work on this. But then I have these windows of not necessarily opportunity, but of potential regret where I feel like, dude, think about the situation that you have right now in your life. Do you think that if you see how you're spending your time right now in 10 years or in 5 years, you're gonna be proud of how you're spending it? But at the same time, you can't be working 24/7. And I think that that's also the problem of building a life that is completely optimized for you to accomplish your goal. If you don't really leave some buffering or some small amount of window of time to enjoy other pleasures in life that are not related to making more money or making it or becoming that life or fame or creating that dream life or having that fame, but just to enjoy small things that are completely meaningless. Talking more about this anime Haikyuu that is about volleyball. I went to play volleyball for, I don't know, maybe first time in the last 8 years in the last weekend, and I had so much fun. I can't really put it into words. Doing something as simple as actually showing up, playing a sport, and trying to make as much effort as I can. It was so much fun. It generally, those 2 hours felt like I spent the whole day doing so. Obviously, it's not something that I'm gonna do daily, but it made me realize like how many other things am I stopping of living just because I think that I'm still on the process of building something that is going to give me that opportunity to enjoy that tomorrow. How many times am I saying to myself, oh no, I'm not gonna take that trip because I'm still not in a position that I can justify spending that much money, so I'm not gonna have that experience right now, but I'll have it in 20 years when I actually make it. But what is making it, you know? I feel like there's always going to be something that I'm gonna need to climb, and if I don't enjoy the ride, I'm then going to be looking back about things that I miss for being in this mode of constantly delaying gratification. And I also don't mean to say that you have to buy unnecessary stuff or you just have to buy into every craving that you get, because I think that now with social media it's much easier for you to be stimulated into thinking that you want things that you don't really need. But things like experiences, I think that as long as they're not emotional things or things that your gut tells you that you need to get and you want to buy in the first 5 minutes, but it's something that stays around your head for a long period of time, I think that you have to make a way of making that thing happen. So I think that I need to embrace more doing activities that are completely mindless and purposeless, that they're not really aligned with the goal of me making more money. I used to treat exercise like this, but after I became a personal trainer, it became much more like an actual job. And when I'm at the gym, I feel more that I'm at the office rather than actually exercising. And I think it's one of the biggest downsides of monetizing your hobby hobbies that people don't talk about enough, because you just end up constantly thinking about work. The same thing happened to me with coffee when I did coffee for a few years. Now every time that I have a sip of coffee, it's not really just a cup of coffee. It's always, oh, these days, am I scoring it? Is it good? Is it bad? What am I feeling? What am I tasting? Is it actually matching my expectations? Am I putting unrealistic expectations considering the context that I'm drinking this coffee? All of these things, I feel like the more you know, the harder it is for you to enjoy something. Just because you're trying to do something to have fun doesn't mean that you have to become an absolute genius at it. And I think that's something that I really struggle with, because I don't know, I think that you can really enjoy an activity, it's only when you become really good at it. But there are some exceptions. You don't necessarily... I was talking about this with my girlfriend too, because she enjoys dancing, and I was telling her, she was getting a bit disappointed that not everyone was super involved into ballet, even though they were going to ballet classes. And I think that there's a fair argument, especially on things like dancing and sports, that if you don't really make it quite early on, you're probably not ever going to make it in the rest of your life, because those are things that you have to cultivate really, really young, because you just lose that window gap. Like, you're not gonna become a football player at 35 years old. Maybe it happens, I don't know, maybe there's some exceptions out there, but I've never really heard of something like this. I think that to pursue a meaningful goal, you have to fulfill that process with meaningless activities that make that meaning more worthwhile of pursuing. And by that I mean that not everything in your life has to have a purpose, because it needs to highlight that one thing that you're actually purposely pursuing. And that's something that I'm trying to embrace now, because I'm trying to not distract myself so much from all the noise there is in my life and really focusing on what matters. This week has been good. I made some progress and I feel better about this week, and I am creating more things and it's making me feel better about it. But also the downside about, like, there's always going to be an emotional wall, and I think that the next emotional wall that happens to me when I start to get the ball rolling on creating content again is that I face that harsh truth that no one is still watching my content. That's the battle that I end up always dropping the ball very early on, which I honestly hope that it doesn't happen this time. But it always feels like maybe I need to be more constant than intense when I'm doing these things, which is why I'm doing these super raw, unedited videos and they're just me talking to the camera. Because I think that in order for me to slowly build up the steps necessary for me to see the results that I want for the purpose that I have, I need to do things without so much intensity but still do them constantly, which is essentially building a habit. So I've realized that in a world where everyone is telling you that you just have to be yourself, that you just have to pursue things that matter, and that you have to make a big change in the world, sometimes what you need to do is just to do really dumb things in order to appreciate that one thing that is making your mind obsess about it.